Hello, hello, hello. Yes, greetings to everyone. Greetings everywhere where you are. Um, my name is Kwame Gonza. I'm glad I'm here today this evening. I want to talk today about a very important subject, and that subject is political system. First of all, let us go into what is called a political system. A political system is you can say it is any system which is used in running the day-to-day affairs of society, and in that sense it it is run by the leadership of that particular country, if you may like. It could be kings, it could be even in the family, it could be the father, and in our dispensation where we are, it could be the presidents which we have. Then when you look at corporations, actually corporation is also a very good example. Corporations, they are run by presidents, CEOs, managing directors. You can say that corporations too have political systems. You can look at a company like Apple, which manufactures iPhones and Mac computers. A company which is or has a market capitalization of more than $1 trillion. So how does it run affairs? So a political system can be described as the governing system which conducts the day-to-day affairs of a society. Now, why do I want to talk about this today? Because we want to go deeper into it and examine it. There's a friend of mine who asked me about the system in which we are as a democracy, the democratic system or the democratic dispensation. So I was telling him that democracy is a political system. The current system which we are using was got from the West. But before we got it from the West, there was other political systems which existed. And it was the failure of those political systems that brought about the current political system. Let us go back to what I was discussing with this friend of mine who was not understanding what I was trying to talk about. And this is a problem which disturbs a lot of people today, to the point that people have been disgusted with politics. Some people have said that politics is a dirty game. And myself, I used to say that. And so you find that a continent like Africa, where the youngest population exists, is ruled by old people who are 70 years and 8 and 90. Why? It's because the young people have neglected politics, because politics now has been associated with dishonest and corruption. Dishonest and corruption. So what we are examining today is we want to debunk that myth and tell the young people, the youth of today, especially the youth of Africa, because that is where I'm concerned. Majorly, I'm concerned about our Africa and our continent. The youth need to participate in politics. Why? Because politics is what governs all of our life. Whether you're talking about economics, the businesses, you understand that businesses have to be taxed. And in case for Africa, you have seen various businesses, the local businesses especially, have been taxed. Mind you, if you start a business as an African, they will tax you and they will not tax the foreigners who have actually more money than you. You may start a business of around $100 and the taxi man will come to tax you, but they will not tax the so-called foreign investor or the foreign business person who has come to exploit the country. who has come with more than $100,000. So he will be taxed. So you need to understand why you are taxed. So when you understand why you are taxed, then you will play a major role in changing the political system of the country. Now, what is uh, this political system that we want to talk about? Let us go back all the way from the start. Before the colonialists came to Africa, or the enslavers came to Africa, we had our way of governance as Africans. We had chiefs. In certain areas, we had kings. And these people were governing the African continent. But that political system which existed during that time, you can explain it whether it existed within the kingdom like Zulu, the Zulu kingdom, or the Ashanti, or the Buganda, or in the middle of the continent where you have others who are governing village. This was a political system. But a political system should be able to adapt to the changing times. Now, the sin of our forefathers who were governing the continent during that period, a fragmented continent of Africa, was that they were not able to adopt their political system to the changing world, to the advancement in technology. And whenever something is not able to adopt, it is going to be destroyed. So what happened during that period is that the continent was invaded by superior people who were the Europeans and Arabs, and they started taking away our people, of course, with the participation of some of our kings. And that participation in itself actually also points to a political system which has been corrupted. Because when you are no more able to protect your people, you are no more able to protect your citizens and give them away, that means you have been corrupted. That cheaper items like mirrors and glasses and plates were being used to hoodwink the kings, our kings and chiefs, to give away our people. So that means they did not understand what was going on outside the continent to be able to adapt to the technology. They saw things like mirrors as a new superior item which is worth giving out to your people. So it shows you that they had been corrupted by the new system which had come. But even the political system itself which existed that period, the feudal system, you can talk about the feudal system, had been corrupted. Now, it was overrun by the slavery system, which that time was a superior political system. Now, I would like to suggest that the feudal system and the chieftaincy was a political system. Slavery itself was a political system. Colonialism was a political system. Now, neocolonialism, which we are experiencing today, which is masked, today it is masked as democracy. It is a political system. It is a political system. Neocolonialism is a political system that is controlled from the IMF and World Bank and the Western world. So, whenever a political system comes under the lack of adoption and fails to adopt, whenever a political system fails to adopt to the changing times, then that political system dies. Now, that is where I was explaining to you that slavery was a political system, but that political system, because it did not suit the changing times, then that particular political system was abolished and it was overrun, and people resisted it. Okay, the Africans resisted it, starting with the Africans in Haiti, or that time it was called the San Domingo, that the Africans there resisted the system of slavery, because the political system comes with everything, in society, whether you are talking about the organization, social organization of society, the economic system, all these things fall under politics. That is why you need to pay very close attention to politics as an African, especially the African youth. Especially the African youth. Of course, all of us Africans, even the old, but especially the African youth, because you, the African youth, you're going to be around much longer than the old. Like me, I'm in my 30s. It means that I am going to go away earlier than someone who's 15. So the person who's 15 years, unfortunately, has to pay much more close attention to what is happening around him because he's going to be here longer. So we need to pay close attention to these things. Now, when slavery as a political system, which came with economics and the way of organizing society and put Africans at the bottom of society, and they were relegated, Africans, we were relegated to the status of beasts of burden. We became beasts of burden. That system was defeated. They instituted a new political system. And this is what I was explaining to my friend, that they instituted a new political system. And what was that new political system that was instituted? They instituted a system called colonialism. After slavery was rejected, after the political system of slavery was rejected. Now they instituted colonialism. And even though the system of slavery ran longer for almost 300 years, and it was rejected, colonialism also was able to run for a period of almost 74 years. I'm talking about from 1884, because when you are talking about Berlin Conference, you are talking about a period which occurred after the defeat of slavery. Remember, Haiti overcame France and Britain and Spain. These were the major slave traders during that period. Haiti was able to overcome them in 1804. In 1804. Now, these people, 80 years later, because slavery did not mean that immediately Haiti, when Haiti stopped or fought against France and defeated them, immediately slavery was stopped in one day. It continued on for some time. But the defeat of France, Britain, and Spain by Haiti or San Domingo signified that that political system had died. Of course, those political systems, they don't die once. But that was the period that led to the starting of the abolition of slavery, the declaration for the abolition of slavery. Because of course, slavery continued on even in areas like the United States for long, up to 1900s. It continued on, but that was the period in which, at the start of that system, that system was abolished. That system was defeated, or it was a gone system. This is the political system of slavery. Now, the system of colonialism comes into being around 80 years later in 1884. Remember, I told you in 1804 is when Haiti got its independence, which was San Domingo. The Africans there, they fought against these nations, which I've already mentioned. Now, it is 80 years later, in 1884, that they come together and divide Africa. And they say to each other, the Europeans say to each other, look, the slavery as a political system which we have been running, which is going to bring the goods to us, which was bringing the goods to us, has been defeated. And it is no more viable. We cannot enslave these people anymore. What do we do now? Now let us colonize them. Let us institute a new political system. Now they came up with a new system, and that system was called colonialism. That system now was able to run from 1884 or 1885, depending on where you are, when the Berlin Conference sat in Germany, and it was able to run until 1957, when Nkrumah gained independence for Ghana, which was that time the Gold Coast. It took another period of almost 74 years, 73 to 74 years, for that period to be broken, because it was also a political system. What did it do? It used to exploit Africa's resources. industrialization had come in Britain and all the other countries. So instead of exploiting the manpower, because they had already accumulated the capital from the labor they were exploiting, which they exploited for 300 years. They had already gained the capital. Now it freed up time for them to think and to invent new machines, because they were not working, they were just lazy. So they invent as they got time, because they were not working. Somebody else was working for them, and Africans were working. Now, industrialization came. When industrialization came, there was no need for free labor anymore, because machines had come now. So what was needed was raw materials. So now a new political system had to emerge. And that political system was colonialism, which necessitated the extraction of raw materials from Africa to go and continue the building of Britain after extracting the labor. Now, this system, of course, took in also and engulfed also Asia. And that's why you see Britain, after being defeated and the United States getting independence, Britain went to colonize India and colonized India and extracted India and forced labor in India, but also extracting the materials from India and destroying India's cotton industry, for example, which was the most advanced during that period in the world. So the colonial system was instituted. This was a political system. Now, a political system is for bringing you goods as citizens of the nation. It is to look, a political system will search all over across the globe and within your country to make sure it brings the goods to you, the people. What are the goods I'm talking about? Good health, wealth, good schools, good roads, everyone should eat well. These are the goods a political system is supposed to deliver to you. Those who want to do businesses should be able to do businesses and feed their family. But a political system which comes with the leadership, which provides you the leadership, is supposed to provide all these things. Now, during the period of slavery, like I've mentioned, and colonialism, these political systems were providing the goods to the people of Europe, and so they became very rich. Now, when the Africans saw this as a system of these systems as systems of exploitations, they fought back and overthrew these political systems. Now, our leaders emerge. Our leaders emerge after 1957 and all the others, and of course, Ethiopia, notwithstanding, was able to retain its independence, but it also had to struggle against these European powers like Italy, who wanted to recolonize it and subjugate it. And of course it was able to resist. Of course, you can talk of Liberia. Liberia, of course, continued to be a colony of the United States. Even today, I doubt that Liberia is an independent, because it's very close on the other side of the United States across the Atlantic. And you can see that majority of the people there, they identify so much with the United States, because these were returnees who were brought, these are Africans who were brought back from countries like the United States, Canada, to come back to Africa, whereby they wanted to resettle them here, because the United States wanted to colonize. Actually, it was a colony during that period, wanted to continue to colonize Africans from Liberia, because these were Africans who were returned. Now, that being said, the political system is supposed to provide those goods. Now, our leaders emerge out of colonialism. When you look at people like Kwame Nkrumah, and even when you read the book, The Political and Social Thought of Kwame Nkrumah, which was written by Ama Baine, she says that Nkrumah envisioned emerging or bringing into being a political system that would suit Africa, that Africa would emerge its own political system. This was his thinking. Now, when we see Nkrumah in the 1960s up to 1966, when he was overthrown, grappling with the political systems, he starts out with how the British wanted him to run, because they expected him to duplicate their system. And actually, majority of the African leaders who were existent during that period had studied from the West, or had studied in the system, even if it was here on the continent, people like Lumumba, people like Nyerere, had studied in the British system, the Western system. So they wanted to emulate the governance system in the West, not knowing that these systems, they were created for the Europeans, and they would not allow us as Africans to run our political affairs the same way they had been running, because their system were built in a way that you have to depend on another for your existence. And that is where many people were talking about the capitalist system, others were talking about socialism. That is why socialism was very attractive to majority of the African leaders on the continent. Why? Because the Western political system, as you have seen even today, the Western political system was created in a way that you have to depend on other people, either for your labor or your raw materials to exist. You have to depend on other people's materials. And so you see that the United States, for example, Britain and NATO, all the European countries, ever since slavery, they have continued to take resources from other countries. They bomb them and take it by force. They impose their economic system on other countries. Because these systems, if you listen to a hearing by the United States Congress recently about the protection of the dollar, what they claim that is the protection of the dollar or maintaining the dollar's dominance. And these days they come out even in broad daylight without hiding. They say that they want to maintain the dominance of the dollar. So this is what they say, that the United States dollar, if it stays dominant, it helps them to buy goods cheaply on the international market. The American citizens are able to buy goods cheaply on the international market. And then there is also a cost. If you transact in the dollar, for example, between Nigeria and Ghana, or between Kenya and Uganda, or Kenya and Tanzania, you pay a price. If you want to transact in dollar, you pay a price for using the dollar because of exchanging. That is why there is a lot of anxiety in the West when we talk about dumping the dollar. And so institutions like IMF and World Bank were created to maintain that. And what does that mean? What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that their systems were created to depend on others, on the labor of others, on the material resources of others, on the intellect of others. That's why you see the United States says it is attracting skilled labor from other countries. You get it? It is dependent on others. It is like a parasite. So the African leaders wanted to adopt these systems. And you ask yourself today, why have our systems failed? Why have we not been able to develop Africa rapidly? It is because we adopted a wrong political system. And this is what I mean by a political system. We adopt a wrong political system. And so, even when our leaders tried to tweak this political system and adjust it, and you can see during that period, people like Nkrumah declared a single-party state. Nkrumah did not put up a single-party state because he was very greedy for power, but he wanted to unify Africa. And he wanted to unify the people he was governing that period. And we see that being duplicated in other African countries. Now, they saw this as a threat. I mean, this is similar to what China has done, actually. What has China done? When China got its independence in 1949, it was able to unify the country. It fought for independence from 1912 until 1949. It was able to unify the country and move together. What did they do? They created one body to fast track the development of the country, and look where they are within a short period. This situation can go even, or can also explain Singapore, which many African countries compare themselves to. There was only one party state in Singapore, which was led by Lee Kuan Yew. and he had time to organize the society. And this is the blueprint which Nkrumah also was trying to adopt. Now, when the West saw this, when they saw this, they saw it as an enemy. They saw the reorganization of Africa and reunifying it as an enemy, because it would help you to speed up the process of industrialization, the process of development. So this is why you see that the so-called one single party state, one party state, was fought against, because they want you to have two groups which are fighting against each other and slowing down the process of development. And slowing down the process of development. This is what they want you to do. And this is what, especially the African intellect, those who think, or who Kataji Woodson calls the miseducated Negroes, they want to show that they are very educated in the Western systems. They are the ones who are parroting very much multi-party, privatization, liberalization, private sector. They throw around these words, but these words are a trap. These words are a trap for Africa. They have been, these systems. Now, the neocolonial system, which I'm explaining right now, is unfortunate that I've even gone further, because I was just jumping from slavery to colonialism, and then to the middle section there, when our African leaders came in and tried to instill, put up the single party state. Like when you go to Tanzania African National Union, when you go to Kenya African National Union, when you go to Uganda, so they formed parties which were meant to unify the various African states, but these people fought against it. Now, that was a very short-lived period of less than 10 years, actually. It was a short-lived period of less than 10 years. And the Western world fought against it deliberately, because they didn't want it. They saw that this would help them to develop rapidly. Even during that period, actually, a lot of industry was built when people were unified. When you go to Ghana, when you go to Uganda, when you go to various countries, even Nigeria, when people were unified and working together, and they were not fighting against each other in two multi-parties, industry were built. Now, what happened next when they saw that this was coming up, that Africa was coming up rapidly in this manner? What resulted from this was the overthrow of the leaders during that period, who had started building the foundation of the African continent. And what was happening in China? China was building the best industry, and it had consolidated itself. It had the single party in China consolidated its position. And the rest is history, of course, for China. So they fought against it. They fought the idea of Africans being unified and working together. And so they told them that you have to do multi-party. So our intellectuals, the ones I say the Kataji Woodson calls the miseducated Negroes, who were showing that they have mastered very well the Western system, came around and then they started parroting. The multi-party is the best. Multi-party is this. Even though they had not experienced this system, they had never been in this system. Even the Western world itself, when it was developing and building up capital, it was a single state. All of them, they were single states. They were not multi-party states. But they are telling Africa that it should be a multi-party state at an infant stage of building a nation. And this reminds me of a book which was written by a professor in Britain who is from Korea, a professor called Ha Jung Chang, who wrote a book called Kicking Away the Ladder. In this book, Kicking Away the Ladder, he argues that the West, after using the state to develop itself, it is discouraging other African countries and global South countries, after using state capital, the state power to develop and build industries and protect itself, carry out protectionism of its industries. It is discouraging the global South countries from using the same systems and telling them that they should use private capital. And who owns the private capital? It is them who own the private capital. The African leaders are just today, this week I've just been in Paris in the so-called new financing system, packed on new financing, which they are attending. And they are there, they are begging for these people to come and invest in Africa. But you have to invest in yourself first and build up strength to the point that you become irresistible. And this is what China did. It built itself up, it built its capital up, human capital, material, and it was having a reasonable amount of capital. To a certain level, China was the biggest producer of grain. China was the biggest producer of silk. So this was capital. It built this capital up to the point that it had some of the most skilled people in engineering that the foreign capital could not resist going to China because of the huge market and the educated people in there. And the fact that they had skilled manpower and engineers and technicians. So this is what you have to build up. Instead of going to beg for people to come and invest in your country. And Africa is in a very good position to reorganize itself instead of going to beg these people. So the capital is owned by them. Now that is the system of neocolonialism. Now that system, it hides behind the so-called democracy. These are all institutions within the major political system. The political system itself is not democracy, also called liberal democracy. The political system itself is called neocolonialism. These are all other institutions which are in there, the so-called liberal democracy. These are just camouflage. This is camouflage which is being used on the minds of people, like how it was used in slavery, and they said they have come to bring Christianity. In colonialism, what did they say? They said they have come to civilize. This was the excuse. Now, what are they saying now? Now they are saying they have come to teach us how to govern ourselves. They have come to teach us democracy. And that's why you see the United States and Europe insisting so much on Africa and interfering so much on Africa, interfering in the affairs of a lot of African countries and the global South countries. Why? Because they want to maintain this system. And even the invitation of African leaders and the global South to this meeting in Paris that has been going on this week is because they want to maintain that financial structure with the lies and hoodwinks of reforming the institution of IMF and World Bank, because they want to maintain that system. Why? They are seeing that the system has come under stress and people are rejecting this system, and they are trying to find all means of supporting it and maintaining it. So what they are doing now, actually, they are trying to bring another new system which will continue to give them that same benefits which they have been having. Because if you look at it, they have been controlling the IMF, they have been controlling the World Bank. So they are trying to lie to the Africans and the global South that do not fight the system. We are going to reform it. And what will they do? They will give some token reforms, but they will continue to control the system in the same way. That is why people like the president of Kenya, when he was putting up a fight and saying, we don't need this system, we want a new system which is equitable, where everyone has equal share. The French president stood up against him and started arguing against him. And the president or the managing director of the IMF was very uncomfortable. If you look at that video, when they were contesting, and the president of Kenya was mentioning, President William Ruto was mentioning that this system has outlived its usefulness. Now that is a political system. Now it is hiding behind the so-called democracy. That is where that system, which is continuing to exploit Africa, is hiding from. It is hiding behind this. to continue the exploitation of Africa. And what must we do as Africans? That is why I came to speak about it. That we need to understand that as Africans, especially young Africans, you need to participate in politics, and you need to participate in the understanding of politics and political systems, because your life depends on it. And you never know, you who doesn't want to participate, you may be the one who's going to change this system, who has the capability, who has the gifts, the oratory gifts to convince others to come forward and change the system and work together. So can you imagine if people like Nkrumah did not pay attention to politics, what would have happened? So this is what I'm talking about, that we have to understand how these things work. So democracy is different in a way that we have to understand its origin. Its origin. It is being used as a camouflage, as an excuse for continuing the domination and the colonialism that is going on. The purpose of a political system, like I've said, is to deliver the goods. Now, what are the goods? The goods I've already explained them to you. What are the goods? The goods I've already explained them to you clearly. Now, if a political system cannot deliver those goods, because in slavery we were promised that they are coming to bring Christianity and to civilize us, and when people saw that these things are not true, they rejected them and they were overthrown. Colonialism is the same. And so this system also, if they are saying that their system today of vote and this democracy is the one which is going to deliver the goods to the people, and it is not delivering those goods, then it has to be overthrown by we the people. Because the end, now this is the mistake. This is the mistake that is being made by these people. And a lot of people, actually, even the intellectuals on the African continent today, that the system of democracy as a political system has been made the end itself. You have heard people talk about the means and the end. What is the end and what is the means? Now, the means is the process. The process. So, democracy or a single party state or anything in that category is a means or a process of delivering the end. What is the end? The end product is improved lives of the people, of the Africans. So, regardless of the political system you use to deliver the goods to your people, you can use feudalism, you can use whatever you want, you can use a single party state, you can use democracy to deliver the goods to the people, because people are not fighting for democracy in the actual sense. People are fighting for material gain. Improved education, a house, somebody should be able to send their children to school, somebody should have good health, somebody should have a, these are the things people are fighting for. They are not fighting to elect. The people who have been putting this idea up and throwing it in our face, that we don't need to focus on what is to be delivered, they are the ones who already have it, the middle class, the ruling class. And so that is why I say that you need to pay close attention to politics, because that is what governs society, that is what runs society. Now, the single party state, the multi-party state, all of these are just means. Now, if the means is not delivering the goods to you, you have a right to change it, because the purpose is the delivery of an improved life. If the improved life is not being delivered, you have a right to change the system, or you have a right to demand the change of the system. And for the sane, smart and wise people, the wise intellectuals in society, they have now to come up and say, this system is not delivering. We need to come up with a new system. And that is why you see that China was able to develop without the Western system, and it has been able to come and compete. Now it is the biggest economy in the world when you are talking about purchasing power. its economy is around $30 trillion compared to the United States, which is $25 trillion in purchasing power, GDP purchasing power. So how was it able to do that? How was Singapore able to develop? Because these are not, the questions people are asking themselves. These are the questions people are not asking themselves. How did Singapore develop itself? Because I've seen many African countries comparing themselves to Singapore. So these are the questions which we need to ask ourselves. How did Singapore achieve this status? How did China achieve this status? And we examine all this. Is because they did not do copy and paste. And that is what majority of our African leaders are doing on the African continent. They are not asking this question. And why are they not asking? Even some of them actually know, but it's because majority of our youth, the youngest continent on the global stage, they are into watching European football. They are not asking these questions. And when you don't ask these questions to these people who are leading you, or you don't want to participate in the leadership of your country, then the result is decay of society. And no one will take care of the society. You will finish watching your European football or your Mexican telenovela, whether you are a lady, whether you are a man, and you come back hungry on hungry stomach and start complaining that the economy is in tatters. Because you have not participated in the development of your country. And I ask you to pay close attention to these things because they are very important to us as Africans. And so you have to participate. Now, I was trying to bring the understanding of what a political system is. A political system is a process, is a system which dies from generation to generation. Those political systems die after some time. Why? Because they are not able to deliver the goods to the people. And so you should examine and understand what the democratic system, which is actually a part of the colonial system or neocolonial system, which is run from the metropolis that we are running right now, how it came into being. Thank you very much. My name is Kwame Gonza, and I wanted to bring this understanding which was very much burning me inside my heart. I was dying to explain to the to the audience this truth which is out there. After discussing it with a friend of mine, I felt that I have also to share it to the majority of the world so that they can be able to understand, especially Africans, so that Africans across the world will be able to understand this truth. It is very important. My name is Kwame Gonza once again, and I'm associated with Connect Africa, our organization, which is working with other organizations on the African continent, the PLO Lumumba Foundation, Africa Continental Unity Party, and all the other parties and organizations on the African continent, which are Pan-African in nature. And we are bringing together the various African leaders and the African civil society to work together. We have written to the Pan-African Parliament, we have written to the African Union, we have written to the East African Community, we have written to the ECOWAS, we have written to SADC. All these organizations, COMESA, we are trying to bring them to work together so that they can advance the interests of the African people. My name is Kwame Gonza once again, and I'm from Connect Africa. Subscribe to the channel if you like the message which you are hearing, and share it with other people so that they can be able to understand these things which we are talking about. All of us need to hear this, especially the African youth, especially the African youth. I cry for the African youth, especially that you need to participate in the development of our continent, and not only in working, but also in how it is being governed. And it can only come up by you supporting the efforts of those who are on the forefront, and also you participating in it yourselves. Thank you very much. My name is Kwame Gonza. The channel is called Africa Reimagined. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, and also invite others to this channel. Like the video if you hear what you are, if you like what you are hearing, like the video and invite others so that we can be able to learn together. Thank you very much. And my name is Kwame Gonza. Bye-bye. Africa must unite.